Hello, welcome back to the Paper Rose. I haven't posted in a while again because I just get sidetracked working on things and then I forget, so I am so sorry. But a friend of mine has asked me to do a video on how I make my hardcover journals. And so I'm going to do a walkthrough. I've never done a tutorial before, so we'll see how this goes. This is one of my hardcover journals. This is done with a hidden spine, and the way that I do them, it's going to work whether it's a hidden spine or a visible spine. You can see the inside here, hidden spine, one of my last ones. And this one, you can see where I've sewn in the signatures here. And like I said, it's made basically the same way. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Oops. The first thing that I start with is a cereal box, pasta box, whatever is on hand. I like to reuse any and all cardboard. I find that cereal boxes are easier because they've already got a side that's going to be basically how big I want my spine. And I've cut this one down in preparation. So I have my two panels each side, spine in the center. Now, when you do this, you're going to want to think about how wide and how long you want your journal to be. So then how wide your pages are going to be. I often use some 12 by 12 pages, so I know that the sides, I don't want them to be much more than 6 inches. You can go over 6 inches if you are like me and like to put a lot of tabs and lace and so on. Then it would still be within the edges of your book. On this one, I'm probably just going to have a lot coming out the sides. I've been wanting to do this one for a while. So here is the base of where I start. So this is 6 inches on the cover from side to side and 8 inches long. I can show that here. So about 8 inches this way and about 6 inches this way. And this spine is roughly 2 inches. That gives me plenty of space. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to pick up batting. And this is very thin quilt batting. You don't have to use this. You can use felt, which I've done. You can use just a piece of muslin. But one of the reasons that I like to use this, other than the fact that it gives the cover kind of a soft feel, is that we need to cover this before we put material on it. The material that I am using today is white, and I can really see the crackling oat bran through here. So while it's not necessary, if you don't want to do that, you could just put paper underneath, or like I said, you can use a piece of muslin or anything white. I just prefer to get the thin batting. So I have cut my piece of batting to roughly this outside or size of my entire book. And then what I'm going to do is take my messy Fabri-Tac and I'm just going to start gluing. And it doesn't have to be pretty or neat. You want to make sure you get your edges. Now this is, I do the same way whether I'm going to sew or not afterwards, and I find that Fabri-Tac holds the best for this, although if you have other preferences, if you like the art glitter glue, which I also like, and the is it Tombow Mambo glue, which I also like, you could use those, especially if you're going to sew the outside before the book is finished. And I tend to like to sew most of my books anyway, but I also don't want anything moving around. So I'm just going to cover that haphazardly and put my batting down on one side, give it a nice smooth out, and go ahead and go across the spine. Like I said, this part does not need to be perfect. You do want to make sure that you don't have any big bumps of glue, because you will fill them through the fabric later if you don't smooth everything out. And I just use my finger when I'm doing glue. I've tried using all the fancy things and I end up going back to my finger anyway. One of the nice things about this too is if it's just slightly short, you can really kind of stretch this batting. You just want it to get to the edge. It doesn't need to go over because we're going to trim that. Usually I store my Fabri-Tac upside down, but I forgot to do that. So we will I'm gonna just grab this jar over here. There we go. Just start upside down, make it a little easier on me. And smush all that glue around. Like so. There we go. And smooth our batting down. Oh, it should look like that. Something close to that. So now you can see that this isn't going to be visible once you put material on top of that. You won't see that anymore, and your book will have a nice kind of plush feel to the cover. So once I get that portion done, get the glue off my fingers, I'm just going to trim these edges off. We don't want to wrap these around because then you end up with big bulky edges on your book. And well, I mean, you can, but I prefer not to, especially if I'm going to sew, or if you want to put those cute little what are they called, the little metal corners, metal book protectors I think they're called, on there. You don't want too much bulk adding to your corners and your edges. So, and of course with it being glued, it's easy to just trim it down. So voila. Okay, I'm just gonna set those scraps aside. Oh, just missed a bit right here. Okay, so there we go. We have the base here for what we're doing. Now I'm going to take my fabric, which I had already cut to the size. Now with the fabric, you do want it to be slightly larger than your cover. This probably could have been a little less larger, but this works just the same. You do want it to be slightly bigger than your cover. So what I'm going to do is get it situated where I want everything to sit. And that's especially important if you're using bigger prints and things like that, that they're not off-centered, because I've done that before and ended up with a very off-centered book. Unfortunately, the batting kind of makes the material stick to it a little bit, so once you place it down and turn it over, we're now going to cut these corners. And we just want to cut, let's see, make sure I'm in the frame there. Just kind of cut a little, oh, come on, a little notch out. Just so that that's not in the way when we are gluing down our top. And there's other ways you can do it. You can go straight across. I kind of like to do these little angled corners here. Do all, oops, do all 4 corners like that. And none of this is precise. Even when I cut the fabric, I really just kind of eyeballed where it went and ripped the amount that I thought that I needed. It does not have to be perfect. Okay, and then we have our corners cut, and I go back and forth. Sometimes I make a cut here and sometimes I don't. I think today I'm not going to. It just depends on, I guess, my mood. I think that a small strip like this it's easy enough to make it fold into your creases. Now, this is the easiest way that I have found to do a book like this, but depending on the level of sewing that I want to do, sometimes I actually cut my spine. You can see that there's a big gap here. So these were 3 separate pieces, and put them together. And the reason that I do this is because when I put my cover on, I'm actually going to sew right down this and right down this. And what that does is it makes it so that the book can actually turn almost all the way backwards once you have everything in place. This way, the easy way, works just fine. Your books will open and close, no problem. But this is also something that you can do. I find that if I want to do sewing detail along the spine, it's a lot easier if I just do it in 3 pieces. And then this is just Tyvek tape. Tyvek tape that I use to hold everything together. So, anyway. Okay, and then I like to start on one of my sides. And again, this is not a precise thing. I'm just gonna smear some glue like that and smush it around. And spread it out real good, because you do want the edges, but you also don't want so much that it seeps through the fabric. And that is another reason I like the Fabri-Tac, because you can do that and it holds well without you seeing a big wet spot through the fabric once you have it on there. I just kind of smooth it down with my fingers. And then this side, same thing. Sometimes I will get in a mood where I only want to make covers, and I will do 4 or 5 of them, just all different types, and then worry about filling them later. Okay. Smooth it down. And your edges are done. So then we're going to start on the bottom or the top, whichever. I like to kind of go halfway because I don't want to give my glue enough time to start drying before I'm putting down my fabric. And get that corner edge there pretty good. And then flip up your edge. Now, be careful not to pull this too tight, or you're going to end up with buckling at the end where your cardboard will want to bend, and you don't want that to happen. So just kind of be gentle with it. More glue. I am in love with this fabric, and I've been dying to do this book for a while because, you know, dragonflies and watercolors. So since I'm taking a break from a couple other projects, I thought this would be perfect time. Fabri-Tac also allows you to pull it up for a second if you need to. If it didn't quite get it down correctly the first time. That's all a little bit over, so. But again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody is going to see the edges of this when you're done. I do kind of like to pick it up, take a bone folder, and really smooth it into that crease that's going to be there. There we go. Now we're going to turn it into our last edge. Get some glue off my fingers. And the same on this side. I'm trying to stay in frame here, so sorry if I'm moving out of the way. I'm really not trying to. I kind of don't like the way that corner's folding. This book, though, is going to actually have corners on it after it's sewn, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. If you want to stop and cut it straighter, you absolutely can. Like I said, Fabri-Tac is very forgiving, but this is going to end up having corners. And again, these edges, they're all going to be hidden. Actually, I think I will cut that down. Hold on. Just a smidge. There we go. And a little bit of glue under that edge. Just, there we go. Hold it in place. Back over that, down to the ends. I used to dread making my covers, and now I think sometimes I like making covers more than I like doing the pages. Just smooth your edges down. A little bit of extra glue in that corner. And yes, sometimes I just stick it right on my finger. Just like that. Okay. Kind of smooth out your bend. And there is my cover. I said these will be covered, so I'm not terribly worried about my corners. And there is your cover. There's a little piece of glue that got on there. Oh no, you know what that is. That was the price tag when I bought the material. It's all gone now. And so that's how you do the outside of your cover. Now, what I would do next is decide how I want to close this book. Not doing anything and wrapping some ribbon or lace or something around it is perfectly acceptable. Nice and easy. You can also do the eyelet. I would wait till you get your inside done and then do your eyelets if you're going to do it that way. One of my favorite ways is to take whatever my closure is going to be, and I just kind of glue it right about here. Measure and do a piece on both sides and let that glue set with your long ribbons coming off of it. And you can do lace, you can do ribbons. I have ribbons. You could do fabric for closure. On this one, it's actually, I'm going to end up doing this sari silk on both sides that matches this fabric. So it's going to have a sari silk closure. And then, now I'm going to do a hidden spine for this book because I'd like to do a spine dangle, and just personal preference. I don't do open spine, or you can see the spine and a dangle. I'll do one or the other usually. So I have to wait until I do the inside of the book. So until I put my signature together. When I'm getting ready to start my book and I get my outside cut, I cut an extra piece that is the exact length, but slightly narrower. You can see like there's a little bit of room on that side, and that's because once you put it in place, you don't want the flaps, you know, to get stuck where it can't close. So slightly narrower. And then I'm going to cover this in a piece of material. So I would just, if I wanted to do the same material, I would just take this separately, cover that in my material, and then sew my signatures to here. Once I sew the signatures to here and trim this down, I leave what is that, about a, let's see, on each side I leave about, I don't know, is that a half inch of material. I cut it to the top and the bottom. Sometimes I use my sewing scissors so that it's the, I can't think of the word, the jagged edge. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Oh, pinking shears, so it's the pinked edge. And I do that top and bottom, and then I leave a half inch on each side. So after you have your signature sewn to this piece, then you take that and you glue your entire signature in place, letting this extra material get glued to the edges. So I didn't cut, I should have cut a piece of material that was this wide. Anyway, so if that was half inch, I glue it down with those pieces nice and feathered out. That helps keep it in place. I use Fabri-Tac every time. A lot of Fabri-Tac, glue the edges down with Fabri-Tac. And then you can either take your cardstock, if you have cardstock that you want to use for your insides, put cardstock there, or you can use a complementary piece of material, which is what I'm going to do with this book. And I just cut a piece of cardstock anyway, and I'm actually going to glue this on here just like I did with the outside of the journal, and then those get glued down after your spine is in. So that's also going to overlap on your 1 inch, and that, all of that together is going to keep this book together. It's not going to budge, your spine's not going to fall out, all the pieces are going to be solid. So that is how I do my journals, my hardcover journals. And I can do a second video once I get my signatures together of putting it in and doing the final touches. So anyway, thanks. I hope this helped. There's 1,000,001 ways to do journals out there, and a lot of fantastic creators. This is just the way that I do it, and if it helped, then I'm really glad. Anyway, see you next time.